the chef. And then later on, they're doing the what we talked about, the ice skating.
Yeah.
And that's when her daughter breaks her wrist, and then just like a super bitch to her daughter, and then what else happens? Oh, she's with her daughter, like tucking her in, and then she's like, I don't even remember saying those things to her, and she's like, she had a broken wrist the whole time, and she felt super bad, pretty much. And then
the guy shows up.
Yeah.
The convict that escaped from prison.
Yeah.
That said that she should be dead. He shows up at the door.
Mm-hmm. Behind a bunch of
the carolers.
The carolers, yeah.
Yeah, he was like holding them hostage to blend in. Keeping the barrel on one of them in the back, which is pretty crazy. And she opens the door to give them a candy or something.
It's like a big old thing of M&Ms.
Yeah, right.
Like Christmas M&Ms.
And then as soon as she opens the door, he doesn't hesitate and he pushes everyone through.
Yeah.
And he has one of those badass like Terminator.
The Terminator one's very like swings. It's like,
but it's not just a shotgun. Sick. It's like a shotgun / grenade launcher.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought that was a shotgun because he blows a huge ass hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, hold on. And that's one of the things that was like, okay, this reminds me of Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, this is like, that's funny that when you mentioned that, he was a part of that. So I was like, oh man, that I totally get that. I don't know if that was him or it's just that type of movie, but
yeah, that's all him. I wonder if that's a real weapon or if that's just some made up weapon for the film.
Modified grenade attachment.
Pretty sure you can do that. Or something.
I mean, because you have on rifles, the same thing.
Yeah, you can put a grenade launcher on there. Yeah. When we were watching the original Predator last week, Billy, he's got an M16 with a shotgun. Underneath.
Yeah. That's pretty sick.
So she gets attacked in her house.
Yeah.
She saves her daughter
by throwing her through the hole in the wall into her treehouse.
This is fucking rad.
Yeah. She picks her up. She's like, huh.
The way that's filmed is it's fucking nuts.
That was
I'm like, this is bonkers, but I'm into it.
Yep, exactly how I felt too. I was like, man, it's just batshit crazy, but all right, I'm on this ride.
So she gets into this kind of brawl with this dude in the kitchen. He's beating her ass, and he says,
"It's brutal too."
Yeah.
It's a brutal fight.
Yeah, but he's like, "I want my eye back, bitch."
Yeah. And she smashes him with
it's like
a meringue or like a banana cream pie or something. And smashes on his head, knocks him out, and then she breaks his neck. And while the husband is walking in, like,
she's like licking the pie.
Yeah, there's like whipped cream and blood on her fingers, and she's like,
chefs do that.
Yeah, she's like, chefs do that. I was like, whoa, this is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Gina.
Yeah. And then I think that's when she kind of snaps out of it because she hears the sirens.
Yeah.
And that's when Samantha comes back in, and she's like, "Where's what's the daughter's name?"
Caitlin.
She's like, "Caitlin, where's Caitlin?" And she runs out, and Samuel L. Jackson's right there in front of the door, and he's like, "Oh, she's in my car. Don't worry." And
please show up.
Yeah, like, and they're like, "Freeze, motherfucker!" And he's like, "Whoa!" I was like,
"Don't shoot!"
Yeah. And then it's the little.
And what's the little girl?
Yeah, she's like, "Don't shoot him."
He's like, "Yeah, what she said."
Yeah.
Call an ambulance.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Samantha ends up leaving with Samuel L. Jackson because she's like, "Well, you know something about my past, so let's go find out what's going on." And then they take off on this road trip, kind of. And then you kind of figure out that somehow the government found out that she's alive, or she's involved with the government somehow. And they're like, oh, not Caitlin, what's her name?
Samantha Kane and Charlie Baltimore was her
like, Charlie
original
Baltimore
name.
is alive.
Yeah.
We gotta tap the old man's phone, and you don't find out till maybe like 10 minutes later who the old man is.
Yeah.
And that's the guy she's going to meet.
It's Brian Cox, who's always been a great actor, and I think he's got some of the funniest lines in the movie. He's got a really funny introduction scene where he's sitting at the dinner table with his wife trying to eat, and she's got the dog on the lap, and the dog is like got its head up its ass, looking for something, and the look on his face, the disgusted look on his face.
Dumbass dog.
And he tells her that whatever the dog is licking is either there to stay or is not worth the trouble.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Samantha contacts him, and so his lines are tapped, so the government knows about this call, and he says, well, we'll meet up tomorrow at 11 at the train station and wherever they're at. And so they go to meet up, and that's when...
Well, before you get to that, we forgot the scene at the motel where she finds the rifle in the suitcase, and then has another flashback of Charlie.
She's going through her luggage, and there's a false bottom or false whatever, and she picks it up, and it's a disassembled sniper rifle, and then she ends up clicking it all together, and then she has this weird like memory thing where she's kind of talking to herself again for a minute or so, and then she wakes up like it was a dream, and then she looks over at the bed and the rifle's been put together, and she screams and runs over, and that's when Samuel Jackson runs in. He's like, what's going on? I heard you scream, and she shoots at him, and then he's freaked out. He's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And then he ends up feeling sorry for her, I think.
She's chasing him down.
Yeah, and then because he's like, I'm leaving, so here's your money back, and so they're on their way back, and then he, I think he feels sorry for her or something, or she convinces him to...
Yeah, and he tells her the story about how he used to be a cop.
Yeah.
Which is another really funny scene, because he talks about how his partner hated him.
Yeah.
And then he was out of town, and someone called like Internal Affairs.
There's these bonds on his desk that out of nowhere disappeared, and he was gone for a while too, and then there's this call to Internal Affairs, and guess where the bonds were? And then she's like, he put him in your closet? He's like, no, I put him in my closet. He's like, I stole those motherfuckers. He's like, but it's like, he was a bad cop.
Yeah.
But
he was a bad guy who was always getting in trouble, and he was trying to do the right thing by helping her
and
out.
that's what he said. He's like, all my life I've never done the right thing, and he wanted to do something that was right, that he thought. And then that's when we get to the train station.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of really good snippets of dialogue when they get to the train station. He talks about how he sings everything that he does, and he's going to put the gun in his pocket. And she says, "Oh, the gun's going to go in your pocket, not in your pants." He's like, "Oh, I don't want to shoot my dick off."
Yeah.
And then she calls him a sharpshooter.
Yeah. And then that's when she goes to the bar in the train station, and that's when she meets Timothy. And he obviously knows who she is because he's working with somebody in the on the other side that's kind of hunting her. And he asks her, I was like, "Oh, do I know you from somewhere?" And then she's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't." And he's like, "I can tell you're not lying."
Yeah.
He's like, that's a gift that I have." And so he walks off, and you can tell he's on the walkie-talkie or something. And he's like, "Take them both out. Do it now." And
I got what I need.
Yeah, and then some guy's walking up. He's a hitman or something, and she thinks that he is what's his name? The guy she's supposed to be meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Waldman.
And she's like, "Oh, are you Mr. Waldman?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he has a newspaper, and he pulls a rifle out of his
the silencer
pistol,
handgun.
Yeah, and then that's when I think she snaps again, and then she grabs the pistol that's in Samuel Jackson's jacket
and shoots it through the jacket.
She shoots him through the jacket and kills that guy, and then that's when all hell breaks loose. And then what happens after that?
There's a shootout in the train station. Yeah. They run up the stairs.
Yeah.
And they get to the top of the stairs, and they're basically going to shoot it out with the guys. And then they toss a grenade up there, and Sam Jackson says, "Fuck it." And then they start running.
Yeah.
And then she takes them they start running towards
He's like, "There's nowhere to go."
Giant window.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you crazy that we're 3 stories up?"
Yeah.
And then they go for it.
Yeah, she takes his pistol and shoots out the window, and then they jump out, and because there was thin ice,
she shoots a...
Yeah, she has like the machine gun too.
Yeah.
She's like spraying the
which is
ice.
fucking wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's when they end up living, and they run to the parking lot and almost get killed again. And that's when Mr. Walden pulls up and is like, get in the fucking car. And then they just take off. And Samuel Jackson doesn't trust him at all from the beginning. So he basically explains to Samantha that this Samantha Kane character is basically a whole was a cover.
Yes, it was a cover
story, and something happened to you. You hit your head, and you fell into your cover.
Yeah, you just ran with the story that you created.
Yeah, and Samuel Jackson's like, no, like this guy, something's weird about this guy. I don't like him, and then he ends up knocking him out, and they take his card basically, and then they go to meet because they have this postcard. Is it a postcard?
Sorry,
and it has a guy's address, and then supposedly Samantha thought that she was engaged to this guy,
like a past lover.
Yeah, before she got her amnesia.
So they go there, and she's trying to talk to him, and Samuel Jackson is very cautious about him too. You know, he sticks the gun in his face and says that she's my only daughter, and I'm very what's the line that he uses? But very skeptical or very very worried, something like that. So Samantha convinces Mitch to let her talk to the guy on her own. And Sam Jackson, Mitch, he goes walking off, and then that's when he runs into Mr. Waldman again, who holds him up and says, "Hey, how'd you find us?" And he says, "Oh, you have it's written in your notepad right here between like the address to a strip club and what appears to be a picture of a man's dick."
Yeah, he's like, "That's not a dick, that's a duck." Which it did look like a dick. It really did look like a dick. When they showed it, I'm like, is that me? And then he actually says it, and then I'm like, okay, I just wasn't imagining that. I just don't have a dirty mind. But yeah, that's pretty funny.
But then, Mitch tells Mr. Waldman, oh, she's engaged to the guy. I mean, she knows everything about him. And he says, oh, she knows everything about him because he's a target.
Yeah.
And they try to warn her, but by then they're too late.
The helicopter shows up, and 10
Timothy
SUVs.
shows up.
Yeah.
So they have her strapped onto like a wheel that goes underwater.
Yeah. The water torture.
Yeah. And it's Christmas time, so it's cold, it's snowy, so the water's ice cold, and they're going to torture the information out of her because they have some big operation. They want to know what she knows about,
or if she's told anybody about that.
When they submerge her for the first time, you see that they've killed
Mr. Waldman.
Yeah, Brian Cox is dead.
Floating in the water, and that's when they bring her up again. And then she's still Samantha, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they
submerge her a second time.
I think they submerge her a second time, and they bring her up, and then I think she switches.
Yeah,
and then she's like,
she starts threatening them.
Yeah, she's like, because Timothy leaves, and then so the guy that she thought she was engaged to is like, and then she's like, oh, I'm gonna
get ready because I'm not through yet.
Yeah, and then he dunks her again, and then she comes back up, and she's like, I'm gonna take out your knees, and
if you let me go,
I promise I'll only
I'll leave you the use of your legs.
Yeah.
And then he submerges her.
They want to know. They think that she's lying and that she's given them up to someone. So they're trying to figure out who knows about them.
Exactly.
But she gets submerged the last time, and
she remembers that. That he says that he always holds a gun in his crotch because he's like, it's amazing how real a gun feels compared to a crotch or something when they pat you down. And then so she gets her hand loose and she reaches down into his pants and pulls out his pistol.
Yes.
And then that's when what's his name? Daedalus is pulling her back up, and she shoots him, and then she gets free and she basically kills him. And then she takes out the other goons that are in the room, the next room, and saves Samuel L. Jackson. He's kind of curled up
being tortured
in the basement. All
you can tell he was pretty scared, like he had given up.
He was all bloodied up.
He thought he was done. And then she saves him.
Yeah. And then, well, they go back to a hotel, right?
It cuts to